A lot of rumbling recently with 5v5, 6v6, game direction, season 11 patch, all that fun stuff. So we got a couple of hot takes this week that include some of that, beginning with this one. Hot take: in order for 5v5 to function, you need to remove or hard nerf every support defining ability such as Nade, Suzu, Discord, Lamp, Res, as they have too much value with only one tank. Tanks thus are either viable / broken if they can counter them, or unviable or garbage if they can't. No, I think it's a hot take because it's a little too one-dimensional to think that removing abilities like that are defined for supports that, are a necessary evil, in my opinion, is not going to magically make 5v5 more fun. Maybe a bit more fun for tanks as they no longer have to worry about a Suzu ever or a Nade ever, but then the game becomes just a brawly death match because there's nothing to stun or CC. You need forms of CC. I understand that it's not fun to have your character inhibited, but you do need a little bit of it in the game, in my opinion. Or else we're just brawling. You might as well just play like Brawl Stars or something, you know what I mean? I've never played Brawl Stars. I just assume that's a game you just kind of just click buttons on without too much no abilities. But yeah, I don't think this is the right way to look at a solution for 5v5, if you even call it that. Ooh, next hot take: most of the player base actually have no idea what is best for the game. They don't think logically or with comprehension, and their only real opinion just comes from what benefits them. Best opinions the majority have is just them echoing their favorite streamers and not because they have any idea. I somewhat agree, but best opinions is subjective. People certainly have opinions and they could be very much valuable and have lots of merit to it. That being said, there are lots that obviously don't think logically and they are just echoing what a certain streamer or a certain person is saying, and that's true. They're not really having too much comprehension on their end, but again, I don't want to fully dismiss that. There is some sound basis for the argument for 6v6 and their direction for the game and why they need to buff tanks, nerf tanks, buff DPS, or buff supports, nerf whatever. It is true though that a lot of people will think only from what benefits them and the role they play. That is very true, and that is one thing that I try my best to avoid. Obviously I'm a support main, so a little support bias comes out here and there, but I've actually argued for some pretty reasonable BAP and KarQ nerfs in the past as well. That being said, I don't think support's the problem right now. This patch is all the Giga tanks, and we need to take a look at what we can do to make those pain points a little less painful, improve the fun for the tank players, while also simultaneously making it not unfun for everybody dealing with all the kaijus running around. You know what I'm saying? But this is not a hot take. You're kind of right. Most players don't know what's best for the overall part of the game. They only think for themselves and their role. And that's why balancing and development is actually harder than people give credit for. When you look at the entire picture, you have to think of your identity, think of your player base, both casual, both competitive, both these roles, the tank, DPS, the support, the arcade players, everybody. It's a little more difficult than, I'm just repeating myself. That's why I'm glad I'm not one of them. I'm gonna be real with you. I just have shitty opinions. Next hot take: Hanzo having a spam attack is stupid and lowers his skill floor drastically, plus makes him way too strong in a close range 1v1. If you're a sniper and someone else rushes you down, you should be forced to hit a headshot, not coddled. So you're talking about the storm arrows and it makes him too strong in a close range 1v1. While true, luckily that spam attack isn't necessarily too strong right now because it was indirectly scaled down simply because everybody has bigger HP pools ever since season 9, and that's the argument of why Hanzo isn't as good right now, because those storm arrows, you got to hit a lot of them to get away with it, and that's why it's okay to have. I think it's a hot take because you can have the spam attack as long as it's not too overbearing, and it used to be a lot stronger. I believe storm arrows used to be like 75 or maybe even 80 damage a pop. I think we're at 60 right now, and people have more HP. You gotta hit a lot of them to be effective. So it's at an okay spot right now, and it's an okay ability to have. The design is okay. I think a couple of quality of life things without giving Hanzo that true one-shot back is being able to retain your arrow charge when you wall climb. That was some weird change that they removed, or they removed a couple of months ago. And I'm not a Hanzo main, but I'm sure some Hanzo mains know what I'm talking about, where if you pre-tension an arrow at full charge and you wall climb now, you lose your charge. But like for many, many years, it was the opposite. You could like pre-hold it, wall climb, go up, and then, you know, loose an arrow and hopefully like do a lot of damage. And I think that was a fine part of his skill, especially now that he no longer has that true one-shot anymore on most heroes. Pharah just got nerfed this patch from 250 to 225. You can headshot a Pharah, a little hard. You can still headshot a, what, Widow, Tracer, a couple heroes you can do it before right now, but yeah. Hot take, Goats was the best meta out of every meta in Metal Ranks and in Overwatch League. I will die on this hill and I don't care. We literally had the best players during this time in the Overwatch League. It was really cool to see all the variations of the tanks that were played. Variations of tanks? And the healers that were played. I understand that DPS players had no time to be able to play and probably got flamed in the Metal Ranks, but I just miss it, man. What variability? Wasn't Goats mostly just like Rein, Zarya, Diva? Maybe occasionally you could swap out one of the tanks for like Mei for Snoats, I think is what it was called. And most of the healers or supports were pretty much locked in, apart from a couple of flex picks depending on comfort. I mean, it's not a hot take because this is just a pretty neutral opinion, because some people will like a certain meta more than others. You just like Goats. But and I did too. But the take to say it's best is, you know, it's your take, but at the end of the day, like the meta lasted too long. You know what I mean? And it was frustrating because we have a whole DPS role and DPS players are unable to play the role because they pretty much had to play tanks or supports to play Goats. And that's a problem, especially if something like that comes up and it's not addressed for over a year. Anyways, let's not live in the past. Let's move forward here. Hot take, Genji has been power creeped to hell and back compared to before the health buffs. His ult hits like a wet spaghetti noodle if you don't bait out 3 rotations of cooldowns. I think they could revert him back to Season 3 Genji with the 30 damage stars and such. He's supposed to be an assassination character, but he feels like if you miss 1 star or the enemy gets healed at all, you can't kill anything. I think before the armor change, Genji was actually pretty serviceable and could, you know, do quite a lot. But I will say he's probably fallen down quite a few tiers from all the tank buffs, and you know, you can't really poke the tanks very well with the armor change to build your blade now. The blade does do pretty little compared to all the bigger HP pools. Yeah, I do think they actually might be able to put Genji back to 120 blade damage, or maybe cut that swing speed down back to what it used to be and keep it at 120 again, and probably bring his stars damage back up. What's it at, 27 right now? I gotta look at the math on the breakpoints, but if we, let's say hypothetically we do 30. I think 30 is a little too high, because 30 on a squishy 90, you headshot them all, it's 180 dash melee. They wanted to get rid of burst damage with the Season 9 changes. That's why they nerfed Junkrat, they nerfed Hanzo and all that stuff. So I think 30 is a little too high, but we can compromise between 28 and 29 right now, because we're at 27, right? Here's an interesting take. Overwatch 1 armor and Overwatch 2 armor should be split into another 2 different types of health. Overwatch 1 armor can help some heroes, but can break and nerf others. Same obviously can be said about Overwatch 2 armor. If they separate it to armor and like barriers and give it to the hero who needs it best, either or. I don't think this take is actually that bad. It just complicates armor and adds another version of HP that people have to learn. And do we necessarily need that, or can we just tweak the heroes that are weak against certain types of armor to help them in the meta individually, on an individual level, rather than adding a new layer of complexity to it? What color would you make it? Like orange instead of like the dark yellow right now? I don't know. Can you guys even tell me all the properties of all the HP pools in the game? White health, blue health, like shield health, armor, and over health, right? Do you guys know that over health generates less ult charge? Do you know how much shields regen? I think it's like 40 shield health per second. Do you know how much armor reduces? It's 10 per instance of damage over 20, but if it's under 20, it's cut in half. Now we're gonna add another layer of armor where it's 30% reduction. That one's a little easy to remember, but I don't think we need to do that, but just help individual heroes there versus doing like all-encompassing armor, you know? But one idea is the new pickable passives idea coming into Quick Play Hacked, I believe, next weekend, which hope maybe you can opt into like, hey, one of my pickable passives is changing how armor works in this matchup, because the enemy is running like, you know, lots of Reapers and Tracers, for example, which are pellet based. So you want your armor to be like, you know, instance of damage, you know, under 10 current armor. But then let's say the team runs Hanzo Pharah, then all of a sudden you want to do Overwatch like earlier armor where it's all a flat 30% reduction because it works better there. So Something to think about, maybe. Hot take, call it a skill issue, but as a lower rank player, I find good Pharah's an absolute nightmare to fight, and I know I'm not the only one with this opinion. She's easily my least favorite damage hero to play against, and possibly even my least favorite hero to play against, period. And it doesn't help that they get a lot of mercy pockets to pocket them for 90% of the match. Not a hot take. A lot of people were complaining about Pharah, high ranks included. They released some of the win rate data, which was 59%, I think, across all ranks, which is unbelievably high, by the way. So, you know, even high level players, if you follow them on social media, on Twitter, have been saying Pharah is way too good, especially after the rework and especially after enough time has passed for players to learn and understand and play her effectively. So you're not the only one. Lukewarm take. May's Blizzard freezes too quickly. As Reinhardt, if I react and charge, I still get frozen. May should have to bait out charge or wall me in to freeze me. It's a pretty hot take because I don't think they up the time that it takes to be frozen. You literally hear "Dongsun out" and you have to literally like hit charge immediately, and I think you can make it out if she doesn't wall you out. The thing is, you charge and she primary fires you just a little bit. Her primary fire adds freeze ticks because the way Blizzard works is like tick, tick, tick. Enough ticks have to pass for you to be frozen, and her primary fire contributes to that. So that's why some people can be instantly frozen while others are not. So something to consider. If you're on the tail end of it and she's not in primary fire range, you should be able to escape it, actually. Hot take, half of the heroes in the game have lost their identities and how they play. For example, Winston and Doomfist, since their slam and leap is the same thing in a way, because when Doom was a DPS, he was actually unique instead of one-dimensional. I disagree. I don't think the heroes have lost their identities by any means. At the end of the day, when you have a game with multiple heroes and multiple abilities, there's going to be a little overlap in some of them, right? Yes, Winston's is a leap, but he has different arcs and he has damage on landing on a single target area. Doom is like a different arc and it's like an AoE when he lands. It's kind of like, oh, like Bap's regen burst and, you know, Briggs armor pack lost her identity because they're similar, because you can press one button on Bap and everybody heals around you, or you can press the Brig pack on one person near you and they get healed. You know, you can't look at it that way, right? I think they're still unique in their own ways. They just fit in the same identity archetype of dive heroes, but they do different things and they blend differently with their entire kit. So yeah, I think this is a pretty hot take. I don't agree with this at all. I will say the Doomfist 1 DPS seismic was a lot more unique. That's true, because like stalling and building up damage longer in the air, but it was a little cheesy to like do like roof stalling stuff to get 125 slams versus just like using it to the enemy team. A little corny, but some Dooms will argue it's good skill expression and blah, blah, blah. I think my favorite is diagonal punches. That shit's cool, but the cheesy seismic slam Overwatch 1 style, not my favorite at all. Hot take, I think adding the ability to make your career profile private has had more bads than goods. Keeping career profiles public helps to identify the age of the account, which can help with identifying cheaters. I mean, age of the account doesn't necessarily translate to cheater one-to-one, of course. They could be correlated, not in some small capacity with like a freshie, that's what they call it, right? A new account, barely level like whatever, 10, 20, Widowmaker only. And it's like, whoa, insane headshots and all that stuff. So like, yes, it may help with that one problem, but like when you open public profile, I mean, I'm all for public profiles. Don't get me wrong. I wish it was like that, but I understand why they have it, because while the cheater thing could be one benefit of it, the cons is the other side of cheaters, not non-cheaters, where people just get flamed for their hero choice and they like stalk their win rates and they pick that apart and stuff. So that's why I've always said a compromise could be like a private profile, but you always have to like pin the 3 heroes you play or prefer to play, up to 3 for each role. So if you are a Mercy one trick, you just pin Mercy on your profile as like your choice, and then people can work around you. You don't have to be in voice, I can at least see it. Or like, if I play Ana, Bap, Kiri, those 3 are, on my profile. They can't see all my individual stats. I could be going like 5 and 15 on Kiriko this season. Bad run. I've done that before. And then people be like, wow, like if they didn't see everything else, they'd look at that and be like, wow, you're awful at Kiriko. But I'm like, I'm not. I'm just on like a bad, small stretch. When you play like 1,000 games, you might have like a rough, small little bit. But overall the season, I'm like, oh, whatever, 55% win rate. Is it more bads than goods? You kind of have to add them up, and it depends on the perspective you look at it from. So that's why I do think it's It's a mild take. Hot take: the community crafted people would make better balanced decisions if they were given serious power instead of making a joke arcade mode. There are certainly some good hits from the community crafted mode. Some of those ideas were really awesome, like the Rhine shield stuff and things like that. That being said, would it be better balance overall? Hard to say, because like you can't just balance for what benefits you. A lot of the community crafted community people would probably balance for what they think is good for the game, which could work for a small subsection of the community. But then I mentioned earlier in the hot take that balance is harder than it looks because you have to balance for everybody. And I'm not saying like dumb everything down, lower skill floor everything. You have to consider accessibility and all these other factors you never, really consider. The perspective of certain ranks and how it can affect an interplay between that and console and buttons, and the list goes on. Not saying it's not possible, but it certainly can be. But I'm just trying to like be reasonable with it, that it's harder than it looks. And like some people here be like, they will make it better with serious power, but it sounds really, really political. The community people would make it better than the stupid dev team, but would they? Maybe a couple would hit, and then people would be like, yeah, sure. And then they have a couple of misses, and people are going to be quick to turn on them. Who knows? All right, a final one for relative to this, mid-season 11 patch. Hot take: the new patch isn't that bad. Tanks have been miserable for 7 months, and we kind of needed a shakeup. Some tanks need tune downs, but the DPS passive change is good. Tanks are no longer made out of tungsten, and are immovable, and armor changes that target burst damage. Y'all overreacting. I may be part of this group a little bit. I may have overreacted very slightly on Twitter. I mean, I don't really type extremes. I'm not very black and white. I just said I don't like the direction that the patch took, which is giga buffing tanks, which is flat buff numbers versus addressing certain pain points like counter swapping from their perspective, and how a couple of picks can just make it super unfun and stuff. But I was just making them all kaiju number 8s is not going to help or solve anything long term. It could be temporarily fun for the tank players right now. I mean, I'm even queuing tank right now. I'm having a good time playing Sig, Zarya, Queen and stuff. But is it fun for everybody else? Depends on the perspective you look at. Before I queue tank today, I played like 30, 40 ranked games around GM5, Masters 1. And I'll be honest, even from the support perspective, it wasn't even that bad of a patch. I also agree with this, which is why it's not a hot take to me. Simply because my playstyle kind of lends itself to complementing the tanks more so than solo carrying and like being like a season 3 support where I'm just overtuned and can just like solo kill everybody. So, I mean, I've been playing Ana, just pocketing my kaijus, and it's been going pretty well for me. So I would agree. Maybe I may have overreacted in the sense that like I thought this patch was doomed off the rip. And I think a lot of creators are too scared to admit that they also slightly overreacted in that capacity. Now, that being said, yes, I do think we need to address the pain points like counter swapping. So maybe remove the all charge to 0% when swapping. Maybe really cook with this pickable passives idea to like soften the blow on some counters. For example, if you're a Wrecking Ball player, your pickable passive in this game, because you see they have Sombra, is that like certain CCs have like a diminished effect on you, or certain splash damages or certain things have less effect on you because of XYZ. And I do think this card system, pickable passives, they do it in Paladins, they do it in Teamfight Tactics, like Augment, could be the way to alleviate pressure for the tank players. And I'm trying to speak from the tank for the tank players, but like I'm not the best representative because I've never had a bad time playing tanks in Overwatch 2, believe it or not. Not a Blizzard dick sucking statement. This is a true statement for me, but I am an off tank player and I can play 4 heroes: Zarya, Junker Queen, Sigma, Diva at a reasonable level. And if they're not meta, then I haven't played it. I haven't really like locked in Rhine nonstop against all the annoying things before, so I can't speak for that perspective. But like, I tend to just pick those heroes when they kind of match the map, and I've never really had a bad time playing tank. But yeah, maybe I'm not the best rep for that. It's just my perspective. That's it. Just my opinion. You don't have to come with me with pitchforks. So anyways, that's it for me for this week's hot takes. Leave some more in the comments. See you next week.